Hey, hello there, folks. Thanks for being there. You've no idea how much we depend upon you for our morals and our keeping our spirits up. Bless you all. Anyway, if you're watching the recording of this, of course you'll have done the sensible thing and jumped to the 5-minute mark or thereabouts while we do the countdown here. Get everybody a chance to settle in and get seated. And for us to settle down, good evening, Alison. Good evening, Faye.
Nice to see you.
Kate. So good to see you. And 5 thumbs up already. We should be so lucky. Yeah, we were just murmuring about the weather and stuff, but yeah, it's bad here. But no idea what what's it like with you, Rupert, at the moment?
It's cold. We might have snow next week, but
right. Hi, Nelly.
Yeah, but hey, it's winter. We like, I always hope if it's going to snow, I hope it snows enough to make it worth going out and taking photographs.
Yeah. We're just worried for people on the Californian coast right now because
yes, we are. We've been talking about this.
That there's a tsunami on the way, so I hope nobody's being affected there. Hi there, Simon. All the good people. Anyway, we've got a great show to look forward to tonight, well, in our humble opinion anyway. Quite a few items to get through, so hopefully we won't take too long over them. Quite a variety of stuff as well, but then
it is
always the case.
We try to bounce around a bit, don't we?
Hello, class. Good evening. And Andrew from Kent.
A wet and windy Kent. Yes, it does seem to be the norm for this time of year. I'm saying that. Simon's probably... I don't know, what's the weather like for you, Simon? You've probably got it better than anybody, haven't you?
Yeah. Anyway, less about the weather. So tonight... Yeah, how many items have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Was it 7 or 8 or something like that to look forward to?
Yes.
Are you ready to give us a rundown when we go live? Proper.
I'll give you a rundown.
Yeah. Okay. Possible furries this afternoon.
We do like a flurry.
Crim. Well, I don't know. Is it anything to do with you? I tell you what, Rupert.
Yes.
You've cleared up, mate. You're not very fuzzy. Your jacket may be, but you are not.
Well, that's interesting.
It really, truly is. Long may it remain so. Because when we came online just before, I could hardly see him. It was
honestly, it was like I was peering through the densest fog. Hey, what can you do? Fingers crossed.
Entre nous, I mean, you are good Patreon supporters. We'll probably be talking about this in a few seconds anyway. But what's happening to us and the stuff that we're uncovering just recently is just making a lot of brain work for us, isn't it? If we appear slow and
I have to say that the last few weeks particularly I've really felt that I've been spreading myself a bit thin. Just trying to absorb all this stuff.
We'll explain more in a few seconds, when
and do you know, Alison, it's amazing how many people 30 seconds it's amazing how many people have commented on my jumper. It just came from it came from the supermarket that I go to every week. Bought it about 10 years ago and haven't seen one in there since. In actual fact, I bought it for my son, but he leaves it here in the wardrobe to wear when he comes over in winter. So I wear it when he's not here.
Anyway, you look very cozy in it.
It's a nice warm.
It's a good motif. It breaks the ice at parties. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Prehistory Guys Unplugged, where we attempt to deliver you news and views and discoveries from around the world of prehistoric archaeology. It's Michael here, as it just said below, and over there.
Yes, it's Rupert here. Yes, nice to see you all.
Greetings to you all, and hope you're keeping very well indeed. Welcome. As you're probably aware, this is if you're watching this and it's not Thursday the 5th of December, you're watching the recording of this. So as well as our Patreon supporters who are watching us now live, you on YouTube, very welcome as well. Anyway, we've got a very interesting sort of group of articles to get through in our little magazine program tonight. Have you got a list there? Do
you want a brief run through our article? We're zipping around a bit tonight. Okay, yeah. We're looking at some nice research from Trinity College Dublin, actually, about the mighty aurochs. We'll tell you about that. A Neolithic ceremonial enclosure discovered in Sweden. A very nice find on a beach in Margate, on the east of England. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Rock art from Zimbabwe, showing people playing musical instruments. There's actually a really interesting, and we're not going to dive deep on it, although you could dive deep on it. There's an interesting piece of research about equality and mobility of people in Neolithic Europe. A burial discovered not too far from me, actually, down here, about 2 hours drive from me in southern France, of a headless woman, which is a really intriguing burial, and some very old bread. And you know us, we do like very old bread.
Yeah, if it's not cheese, it's bread.
Yes. So we had to include that one.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get going with that, just a sort of update about where we are, actually. And, we like to wear our hearts on our sleeves. But who thought that, Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge was a good idea? I mean, it's fantastic. But the stuff that we're unearthing, who would have thought? A couple of guys that started out, how many years ago is it now? 18 years or something set out to make a film about standing stones, who are now the Prehistory Guys. And the stuff that we're finding out is, who would have thought that would be finding out what we're finding out, that there is so much to uncover that we didn't know about. And I'm pretty sure a lot of folk out there won't have known about, and yet it's fundamentally important, to prehistory, etc. And case in point, you'll be aware that we've been delving into the. It wouldn't, if it hadn't been for the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project, we wouldn't have been looking at the lakeside settlement of Despilio in northern Greece, and hence the stuff about the Despilio tablet. But what that has uncovered, unbeknownst to us, that how important lakeside dwellings, or as they're collectively known, pile dwellings, are in the whole of the Neolithic of Central Europe, pretty much, extending right over from the Balkans into the Swiss lakes and so on and so forth. It's, from what we can glean, it's as important as the more northern trajectory of the linear banded ceramic, or the LBK. And yet, and this may be an error of translation or language. Perhaps most of the printed material is in another language, but there's so little to find out about it. And so we've now got a lot of work to do justice to what we feel was going on in Central Europe in order to complete Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge.
It seems to me, from what I've been able to glean, is that that most of the research done on pile dwellings, lakeside dwellings, is done by very, very small teams, and it takes them a hell of a long time to actually get anything published. And I think that might be the inherent problem. There was something, I can't remember which paper it was I was reading, but it was like 30 years before a paper was actually published about something that they discovered, which is an extraordinary length of time, really.
I'm going to give you a basic stat about pile dwellings, and then we'll move on. There are well over 1,000 known lakeside dwellings around the lakes of Switzerland. 1,000. You know, and much archaeology has been done. Just let that settle for a moment. Kate, our film, I presume you mean Standing with Stones, basically follows the syllabus in my Neolithic Europe.
No, I think Kate must mean Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge.
Oh, of course it must, yes.
Right.
Okay, right. Well, maybe we should do your course. Then we'll be...
Yeah, maybe we should. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Kate, we'll do our very best. Shall we get on with it? Shall we get on to item number 1, unless you can think of anything else? Yeah. Anyway, item number 1, as Rupert promised, ancient DNA brings to life the history of the iconic aurochs. My word, that's a big skull. I've seen a few actually in my museum travels.
Yes,
recently.
They were big beasts. Yeah.
Anyway, it says, this article in phys.org, always a good source. Links as ever once this goes up, the recording of this goes up. Links to all these articles will be in the description below. Geneticists from Trinity College at Dublin, together with an international team of researchers, have deciphered the prehistory of aurochs, the animals that were the focus of some of the most iconic early human art, by analysing 38 genomes that harvested from bones dating across 50 millennia and stretching from Siberia to Britain. The aurochs roamed in Europe, Asia and Africa for hundreds of thousands of years. Adorned as paintings on many a cave wall, their domestication to create cattle gave us a harnessed source of muscle, meat and milk. Oh, somebody got carried away with their writing here. Such was the influence of the domestication that today their descendants make up a third of the world's mammalian biomass.
Yeah.
It's not mostly in the form of cows, I presume that is. Dr. Conor Rossi, Trinity, first author of the article has been published in Nature, said the aurochs went extinct approximately 400 years ago, which left much of their evolutionary history a mystery. However, through the sequencing of ancient DNA, we have gained detailed insight into the diversity that once thrived in the wild, as well as enhancing our understanding of domestic cattle. Although fossils of aurochs found in Europe date back 650,000 years to 650,000 years ago, about the time archaic species of humans appeared on the continent, animals from the east and west extremes of Eurasia share a much more recent common ancestry, pointing toward a replacement around 100,000 years ago, probably by migrations of a southern Asian homeland. In echo of human prehistory, this replacement was not complete, with traces of earlier ancestry surviving in European aurochs. Dr. Mikkel Sinding, I beg his pardon, co-author and postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Biology, University of Copenhagen, said, "We normally think of the European aurochs as one common form or type, but our analysis suggests that there were 3 distinct aurochs populations alone in Europe, a Western European, an Italian, and a Balkan. There was thus a greater diversity in the wild forms than we had ever imagined." And the article gets off a bit into the weeds there. I just want to skip to this last bit, which is a quote from Dan Bradley. Dan Bradley says, "Although Caesar exaggerated when he said it was like an elephant, the wild ox must have been a highly dangerous beast, and this hints at its first capture and taming, that its first capture and taming must have happened with only a very few animals," said Dan Bradley, professor in Trinity School of Genetics and Microbiology, who led the study. You've got a thought about his thought on...
my thought was that's an academic attitude if ever I heard one, because I'm sure if you work with wildlife, then you would have gone out and shot the adult and taken the calf, and domesticated the calf and bred calves plural, and bred from those. I don't think that you would have tried to have caught a bloody great bull aurochs and taken it home, taken it home on a lead. No, I think babies would be the way.
I mean, it's all good and interesting. I don't want to dwell too much on that one, but just thought we'd throw that in as a teaser at the beginning. But as soon as you start looking at these things, questions do arise, like did that diversity or the emergence of one particular strain, was there human intervention in that happening? Was it just natural selection, natural migrations and interactions, or climate change? These are the things, unfortunately, I presume, that we're most likely not to ever know. Yeah.
Well, it's difficult with ice, with any degree of glaciation in between. That all right, they've narrowed it down to 3 distinct lineages, but in the knowledge that there were plenty before, as you say, it's impossible to know how that happened. What are you laughing at? Sue says, I can just imagine us two heckling on Kate's course. Well, yeah, it's true. We would. Yeah.
Kate says, at least someone would be answering my questions and discussing things. Hey ho. Anyway, yes. That's that. I think that's enough about aurochs. I've got no further words on that.
No, not really. I think the interesting thing about this is it extends more into the domestication. And that's something that requires further reading, but it's worth pursuing the links anyway. There's a paper attached to this. So.
It's not much something we've delved into. So I don't know what work has been done upon the process of domestication and the breeding of aurochs, or the interbreeding and what happened. But I'm sure somebody has. We've just not touched upon it ever.
Well, they're trying to bring them back, aren't they?
Yeah, well, seeing as they only all went extinct, what is it, only a few hundred years ago?
400 years ago, the last one was killed. Yeah.
It's well on the cards.
Yeah, they made a big deal out of that. There's even paintings of it. But, hey-ho. Yeah, so they are trying to bring them back. There's a place in Spain where they've got quite a few of these enormous cows. So I don't know how they think they're domesticating. I don't mean that. How they're breeding aurochs back into the gene pool.
Nelly says it's called
the Taurus Project. Well done. That's the one. That is the one. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be said that you look it up online, and it's true. There is some film of some pretty big animals that they've got going. So we shall see.
We should have a look at that and see if there's. I was going to pun. See if there's meat on the bone for us. But if people would be interested, I don't know. Let's park that. Move along. I tell you what, folks. Did you know that a Neolithic ceremonial enclosure has been uncovered in Skåne? Well, where's the proof? Skåne, I think. Go on, somebody correct me. I think that's right, though. I think that's right. Archaeologists from the Swedish State Museums of History have recently uncovered a ceremonial enclosure from the Neolithic period located in Skåne, Sweden. Initial excavations found wetland deposits and dry stone wall which contained a large collection of Neolithic artifacts, including funnel beaker ceramics, wood-crafted flint, and animal bones. So the funnel beaker culture, 4,300 to 2,800 BC, is named for the characteristic ceramics, beakers, and amphorae with funnel-shaped tops. The culture developed as a technological merger of local Neolithic and Mesolithic techno-complexes, whatever that means, between the lower Elbe and middle Vistula rivers. Funnel beaker culture, we've not gone there, have we? We haven't.
Do you know what? We don't need to complicate the issue tonight, or we'll be here all night talking about ceramics. Funnel beaker came after linear pottery.
Correct.
So that's kind of all we need to say here, really. As you said, 4,300 to 2,800 BC, funnel beaker culture.
But, it's one of those instances where something just trips off the tongue, and yet if you start digging...
But that's the thing that gets me about all ceramics is that you lift the edge of the rug and
Star finds at the site also include an antler billet used for knapping flint. Let's talk to James about that. James.
Yes, we don't hear about billets very often, do we?
Yeah.
It's basically where they've blunted off a piece of antler.
Stephen Rich has been to Skåne. It's a beautiful place, known for light that artists love, and very close to Copenhagen. Actually, you're not wrong.
There you go. Well done, Stephen. Wow.
I've got a look. See, look at that.
Hey.
I thought of everything.
There you go.
Blue mark is where Skåne is. Okay. Anyway, back to business. Wrong one. Skipped ahead there. And leatherworking stylus, which has been well preserved due to the environmental conditions of the soil. Looks like we're looking at a bit of flint and some ceramics there.
Yes.
According to the archaeologist, findings preserved from horn and bone objects from this area are extremely rare, more so in the wider context of the funnel beaker culture sites in Sweden. Nearby, the researchers also unearthed a causewayed enclosure from the same period. Now, here we go again. Causewayed enclosures. In my mind, they're uniquely associated with England, with southern England and bits of Ireland. And now suddenly I learn, looking at this, that they're far more common on the continent, and they're earlier causewayed enclosures. Are they a missing gap between rondels, kruisgravenanlagen, and henges, for example? All sorts of those kinds of questions leap into my mind. Now, the question mark is causewayed enclosure from the same period, consisting of rows of elongated pits up to 1.5 meters deep, arranged in a semicircle on a raised ridge. Some of the pits are lined with stones, while others contained funnel beaker pottery deposits. These are unique for the Neolithic period in this country. We've discovered a ceremonial complex where people gathered at certain times during the year to celebrate religious festivals. The finds suggest feasts with ritual butchering and deposition of offerings both in the wetland and in the open pits of the enclosure, says Magnus Artuson. Funnel beaker culture, farmers, variety of crops, hunting and fishing. Yeah. So, again, not really that much to write home about, but again, sort of uncovering as another corner of the carpet to lift when we feel up to it, isn't it? The whole causeway enclosure thing, and
yes,
I think one of the things that attracted us to talking about this is the assumption of a ceremonial enclosure. The jury, as far as I know, is out on causewayed enclosures as ceremonial.
I have an issue with the whole categorization thing, really, because I think there's a lot of places where one form of enclosure has become another over time, just with rebuilding. It's not even reuse; it's just refining into a new style of structure. But as you say, they're only called causewayed enclosures. Generally speaking, they're only called causewayed enclosures when you read about British stuff. So, just because a rondel might have more ditches doesn't make it not a causewayed enclosure.
Yeah, and much, much deeper as well. Tended to be a rondel.
But not all of them. A lot of the rondels in that last major piece of research that we were reading, a lot of the rondels have got really shallow ditches, which made me think that they were just for drainage. probably.
Kate asks what makes them think it is ceremonial. I think it's the deposition, isn't it? And
it's because there
usually,
appears to have been seasonal use of feasting. Yeah. Seasonal use of feasting. Seasonal feasting. That's what I mean. And of course, every time there's any signs of large-scale feasting, then they call it ceremonial, which I suppose is not unreasonable. It's when they badge them as religious that I lose the plot. But yeah, I think it's in this instance it's fair to call it ceremonial because it does seem to have been seasonal feasting.
And class says some rondels are causewayed enclosures. It's just about the ditches, not really. Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, my instinct, and I'm perfectly open to being persuaded otherwise, is that there were seasonal occupation sites. Not necessarily just feasting sites, but actual occupation sites. Because the interesting thing, a lot of them seem to have been positioned in quite a defensive position. If not on the top of a hill, then banked up against an unapproachable quarter. So that there's some kind of protection element seems to be going on. Again.
The thing that bothers me really about the categorization, and don't get me wrong, I do accept that categorizations have to be made, otherwise we wouldn't know where we were. But you look at a number of places, and the Isle of Man is a great example where there are seasonal pastures. Wales as well. There's seasonal pastures. That half of the year they're up in the highlands, and then they come down into the lowlands, and that is where they kept their animals over those periods. And where are you going to eat? The fact that they find these apparent feastings. It could just be, well, that's just, as you're talking about seasonal occupation. It's just where they were living at the time, not necessarily that it was a big deal about them living there.
Yeah, Kate's question sort of speaks to that point, actually. Do you mean like at Durrington Walls? Well, if they had not found evidence of occupation, if they hadn't found the huts, the domestic dwellings at Durrington Walls, we'd probably still be calling Durrington Walls a ceremonial feasting centre.
That's true.
I think we'll leave it at that. Let's
okie dokie. Yeah,
that was the talking point for that. Hit that, and we should get an advert for Lovetts of Ramsgate. Safari Reader View is supposed to knock the adverts out, but it's failed.
Yes, this journal is stuffed full of adverts, that's why, probably.
I don't think there are any more, it's just this one stuck. Thanet archaeologists' discovery of rare lower Paleolithic hand axe on Margate Beach. Anybody Margate? Before we go any further, you need to know where Margate is. It's there, next to Ramsgate.
One of my closest friends is actually just off Margate Beach right now, because that's where his son lives, and they've got a new grandkid. So I sent him this article, and I said, "Get out on the beach and have a look. You're letting the side down."
Anyway, the thing is, you are misled because Margate is very coastal. Margate is, it's a seaside town.
It is indeed
touristy town. Anyway, let's proceed with the article. It'll become a bit clearer. Just to be clear also, this article is written by Steve Tomlinson himself, who was the guy that discovered the axe. So it says, a lower Paleolithic hand axe, 8 centimetres in height and 6.5 metres across, has been found on the beach in Margate by archaeologist Steve Tomlinson.
I thought, to be honest, that it was written by Kathy Bales and that he had contributed to it, but that's just being picky.
Okay, well, maybe it says that at the bottom. I missed it. By archaeologist Steve. Maybe you're right. it's not so much written in the first person, is it? Anyway, we digress. It may be the first hand axe ever recorded from this particular location. It's of a type known as an Acheulean. How would you pronounce that? Acheulean, yes.
Axe. And
hand axe.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
It is likely to date within the lower Paleolithic period, broadly between 615,000 BC and 240,000 BC, most likely after around 500,000 BC, so 500,000 years ago. It was probably created and used during one of the three main phases of activity where evidence of hand axe dominated assemblages have been recognised in Britain so far. Now, here on in, it's really a question of choose your interglacial period within which to place the axe. I think probably the favourite is around about 500,000 years ago, but it could be any of the others. I think. I mean, there's a lot of detail.
It's one of those things, isn't it, that you don't need to dwell on this much beyond the fact that it's absolutely fantastic that Stephen Tomlinson found this on the beach. And you look at the axe that is still, for an Acheulean axe, it's still in pretty good condition, having been found on a beach. And that it's got barnacles on it, for God's sake. I mean, it's just such a fantastic object. I find one of the most fascinating things for me about Acheulean axes, and it's more from an anthropological point of view, really, that the bifacial aspects of an Acheulean axe, they remained basically unchanged for pretty much 1 million years, which means that at no point during 1 million years did the hominids of the time go, do you know what, I think I can improve on this. Nobody did that. It worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And the Acheulean axe is found, when it's found, it's over a huge area, extending from well down in Africa to across Eastern Europe. And the southern parts of the UK, of Britain now, that's the furthest extent within which the Acheulean axe is found. So I don't know, which.
And where's the oldest one in? Where's the oldest one in Britain?
Well, I was going to tell you, it's just 10 miles up the road here. Hold on.
What a wonderful thing!
I can show you. Yeah, there, that blue mark right in the middle there. Near Coventry.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I live here, where that blue dot is there. Yeah, and the oldest evidence of. Now, the interesting thing is that doesn't get mentioned in this article. That he uses the word, or she uses the word human as the maker or user of the tool. We're not talking about Homo sapiens at all. No. It's either Homo erectus or more likely, I think, Homo heidelbergensis, if I'm right. Because isn't Boxgrove, wasn't that heidelbergensis? That's Boxgrove has got the earliest known.
A bit further south, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can be clever and show you that actually as well.
Oh, have you got that on the map as well?
Down Boxgrove, yeah. There it is. Not far from Chichester.
Actually, it's interesting you bringing that up because, and I couldn't find the article, but there was a little article only a couple of weeks ago that another hand axe had been found on a beach. Actually, I think it was Shoreham. Anyway, somewhere just not far south of Boxgrove there. So it's interesting that you put that up.
Andrew says sometimes hand axes can be found in gravel dredged from the North Sea, Doggerland. which is a very good point. The interesting thing is, stuff dredged from Doggerland is less likely to have been disturbed than this find in Margate, because what we're marvelling at is the fact that this has been recovered from the shore area. But of course, in 500,000 years, the geological shiftings and the change in the land that it's been discovered at all is extraordinary, because anything deposits from then wouldn't just sit there; they'd have been churned over and over, and with the glaciers didn't reach that far. But the land was certainly...
No, but that was dry land, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Go back 10,000 years, that was all dry land.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I've got nothing else on that, though, Rupert.
I just loved the fact that someone had found an axe on a beach, and it was that old, and it had barnacles on it.
What a thrill.
Yes, indeed.
Well, the thing is,
that was a good day out for him, wasn't it?
Exactly. But you have to know what you're looking at.
I'm just going to say hello to Sharon from California. First time watching live. Welcome, Sharon.
Hey! Greetings, Sharon. No, you have to know what you're looking for. That's the thing. It would be, unless you have your professional eye in.
You say that. You say that. I mean, I just... my sons used to, it was a bit of a joke. I mean, I always did the paleontology thing more than I did the archaeology thing. And my attitude has always been that every pebble has a story to tell. I would bore them to death with fragments of crinoids and things that I would pick up off the beach. And I'd say, no, Dad, not another crinoid.
But you're not usual.
Well, you just look for things that are bit odd in the environment.
Well, I look for things.
I do,
yeah, exactly. It's. I couldn't guarantee I would have spotted it. I would have recognised it. That's my point. I'll speak for myself, shall I?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would have done.
Okay, on to the next. Archaeologists reveal musical instruments depicted in Zimbabwe's ancient rock art. Study published in Azania, Archaeological Research in Africa by archaeologist Dr. Joshua Kumbani and Professor Margarita Diaz-Andrio, explores the intriguing relationship between Zimbabwean rock art and musical instruments. So this is quite a long article, so I don't want to read it out verbatim all the while. I mean, there's quite a lot of context to get through. I don't know if you got, can you see it, Rupert, or between the two of us, maybe we can?
I think it's what's interesting here is that what they've found from the rock art is very distinct types of musical instruments being played. And they've put it in a very academic format where they've referred to them as idiophones, membranophones, chordophones, and aerophones. Which, if they're not,
well, they're not to be obvious, fair to them, they didn't do that. It's
no, they didn't do that. It is terminology. It's
the hornbostel sax system.
That's musical instruments where the sound is created by the vibration of the thing itself.
Yes.
Membranophones, membranes, drums, and chordophones, strings, and aerophones is from air movement of air through the item. So you've got all these things that I think the most intriguing one for me. Hang on, let me come back to our window. So that in the picture that you're showing there. In fact, I mean, this is from an article rather than a paper that we're looking at here. The paper itself, which is really pretty lengthy, that's got an intriguing set of pictures running throughout.
I can show that. Do you want me to show that?
You could do. I mean, it's interesting. The picture that you've got up.
I mean, I'll just do it for the pictures and the sort of. If I run through when we get to them, there. maybe I'll put it full screen so you can get an idea of, well, at least their source material that they're working with, not just the pictures that are in the article. I mean, they're stunning, all these. I wish I could blow them up a bit bigger for you. And, of course, you can play games with your imagination about what they are, what they represent.
Yes, it's interesting that some of the interpretations, I think, are questionable, and some of them are screamingly, it's obvious what they are. So it's interesting that there's that much of a discrepancy. I'm not sure what those are doing.
No, quite.
Keep going. That's again, not sure. Keep going. So that's what we were looking at a minute ago.
Yeah.
But there's the wind instruments is what I'm
goodness, there's a lot
hoping
of it.
That we'll get. There you go. So here's some of them. Now this is interesting because the researchers have referred to this. You can see the caption above it: 3 men playing trumpets. But I look at those and I see didgeridoos, and all right, I know didgeridoos are supposed to be a quintessentially Australian thing, but I think a pipe that you can blow through, or if they weren't pointing down at the ground, I'd have said, well, maybe they're blowpipes.
Yeah. Just to divert. Okay. You just said about associating boomerangs with Australia. The earliest known boomerang is from Poland or someone like that.
Yeah, it's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
I'll just scroll down to this other one. He's got a very long trumpet. Could be a blowpipe. That's the trouble.
Could be a
one-handed blowpipe. Don't know if that's going on there. Anyway, back to the interesting thing about this is the methodology, and they wanted to be able to use the rock art to discern whether people were using musical instruments, and the methodology was to look at these pictures and to divine how the dynamic of the people in the pictures themselves, in the rock art, is a tell for whether the item they're holding is a musical instrument or something else. Are they in dance? Are they holding something at a particular angle that would give it, for instance, in that way you can just see down the bottom. Yeah, you could discern that as a rattle in the over on the right there. So it's interesting stuff, but open really to highly subjective interpretation.
I'll tell you something else that I find fascinating with these, and that is that some of the musical instruments do seem to be very gender specific. So you only see men playing the wind instruments. And it's pretty much always women with the rattles and those kind of instruments. And from a personal point of view, I haven't seen enough of a sample to say that's definitely what's going on. But it certainly seems to be that there aren't any pictures of women playing wind instruments, and I find that intriguing.
I'm thinking I can't remember seeing any indication of what date is attached to this rock art.
I think that would be in the paper. It's not in the article.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have it to mind. Which is a fundamental. And Kate sees a guy throwing a spear. Fair.
Yes, and Nelly said an Alpenhorn. Absolutely,
Alpenhorn. Yeah. So the researchers say they successfully identified rattles, a drum, trumpets, flutes, and a bull roarer, concentrated in the Harare province. They were looking for indications of trance motifs and things like that. Yeah. So, to be honest, it's fascinating, but I'm not quite sure where it securely gets anybody. Except making us aware of these wonderful
I think what's
This wonderful rock
interesting really is the fact that when you look at the wealth of rock art from whatever country, but you often have scenes of people in with nature, don't you? You've got people fishing, people hunting, people dancing, people fishing. I haven't seen very many with people clearly with musical instruments.
No, fair enough.
And I might be, it's to a degree, it's well outside our remit, and so I don't know if I'm really missing, something screamingly obvious.
However, it's really nice. I mean, I'm perfectly convinced that at least some of those are musical instruments.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is, dancing, whatever involved. It's just, the question marks over which. I'd like to think of them as having didgeridoos. I really would.
And so would I. It's I mean, why not?
But there could be blowpipes too. Right, in my mind, that is time to move on. You were going to say something.
Yeah,
else.
I'm scrolling down through the paper here, and I'm not finding any dates that leap out at me.
Interesting then.
Yeah,
it's a fundamental missing for me then.
I agree. But hey, it's rock art nonetheless, and we'll put the link to that at the bottom anyway. It's a lengthy paper.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Now then.
Yeah. Where are we going?
Believe it or not.
Oh, yes.
It has been, discerned that Neolithic societies of Central Europe had a surprising degree of social equality and individual freedom. How do you work that out, I hear you ask? I'm not so sure myself.
Yeah, there's some interesting little nuggets.
Actually, I don't think this is too long. So anyway, the most recent genetic research has revolutionized our understanding of Neolithic societies, revealing a more complex and diverse landscape than traditionally conceived. Studies conducted by an interdisciplinary team from the universities of York, Vienna, and Harvard have shown that these communities were not only marked by mobility and interconnectedness, but also by a surprising degree of social equality and individual freedom. Historically, it was known that early farmers migrated from the Near East to Europe, bringing agricultural innovations with them. However, this new study has demonstrated that mobility continued during the Neolithic period, indicating that people travelled long distances and maintained extensive social networks. Through genetic analysis of over 300 individuals, researchers discovered that many people lived far from their families, suggesting societies less restricted by geographic proximity. The analysis of over 250 individuals belonging to the linear pottery culture, them again, allowed researchers to observe that this group expanded over hundreds of kilometres in just a few generations. Despite this geographic spread, burials showed no significant differences in grave goods, diet, or origins of individuals, regardless of gender. This finding suggests that men and women enjoyed equitable treatment, at least in terms of funerary practices. Useful map showing approximate area of where we are. Says, in addition, a notable example of familial connection comes from a triple burial, initially believed to involve a mother and her two children, but which turned out to be of a paternal aunt and her nephews. The woman's arms placed protectively around the children reflect a profound act of care and highlight the importance of extended family ties in these communities.
Yes. Yes.
Is there too much being extrapolated here, and is there a fundamental sampling problem here? I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I must admit, I pondered the same questions, and I don't want to be dismissive of the research at all because it's pretty damn thorough. But
and let me absolutely point out the distances travelled by this by people in the Neolithic. It is an element of the Neolithic that gets missed, overlooked. You know, there's a vibrant dynamic going on with people travelling distances. There's no doubt about that. What I'm questioning, how the equitable, the what they're claiming, the absence of, or I put it in the positive, of social equality they've gleaned from these burials. That's what I'm.
I agree because you know that you can certainly say from this research that there is no difference. There's no inequality between male and female burials from the sample that they examined, but that doesn't really tell you that the whole of society was equal, does it? It just means that the burials that they found were equal. Now, if they're high status burials, we don't know.
That's exactly the point.
And the other thing that I'd like to know,
gets buried.
And I've got to be honest, I've only skimmed this paper. I haven't thoroughly read the paper. It's another long one. And what I do wonder is, they said, for example, they were talking about people living a long way from their families. In fact, there were some instances of people like 100 miles away from their families. Did I read that? Blah, 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 blah. It's something like that anyway. I know that stood out for me. And I had to wonder from that how the analysis was done, because that would be an extraordinary piece of research to show that, you know, they'd found in a burial 100 miles away, that they'd found someone, oh, look, this is related to so-and-so that was in this grave that way.
Yeah.
That would seem an extraordinary coincidence to me. So I don't know how that statement has been arrived at. You know, that people some people lived a long way from their families.
Yeah.
But having said that, the burial that you mentioned there of an aunt and two nephews in a burial together, and the beautiful thing about this, it's we were talking about it earlier on, that where in prehistory, this is something that crops up every now and again, that you have a burial that it's such a story in and of itself. You know, that what was the situation that gave rise to this woman being buried with her two nephews? To me, it reminded me of, do you remember there was the burial of a baby that was laid on a swan's wing?
Made me cry.
And again, there's something so beautiful within that, or the Neanderthal burial with all the flower burials, if you remember.
Yes.
I
remarked to you earlier when we were talking about this earlier, it sort of suggests to me that to a large degree in prehistory, people seem to have had a much more plastic view, a sort of creative view to burial and, you know, the whole process of death, that it felt free to express a story in the burial. We're very, very limited in our choices as how we dispose. You know, because
I think we do tend to do a thing of, you know, we might put something in a coffin with somebody, but then we bury it. I mean, then we burn it or whatever. It's just, in fact, do you know what? That raises another point. Actually, it's that point. You know, where does grave robbing become archaeology? And the other way,
please,
and the other way around. And I'm just wondering if if we did go into more recent burials, would we find similar stories being told in how people had been buried? But we wouldn't know that. But certainly we don't anymore. We don't do. We certainly wouldn't do a multiple burial like that, would we? A woman with her children, we wouldn't put them in.
Well, and maybe what we're talking about is exemplified in the article we've got coming up as well later on. Yeah. Hey ho. We're not finished there, actually, because also it says the disappearance of the linear pottery culture around 5000 BCE remains a mystery. One theory suggests its decline was marked by periods of violence, as evidenced by the Aspen-Schletz massacre in Austria, where over 100 individuals were found in a pit system with multiple fractures in their skeletons. However, new genetic analysis revealed that fewer than 10 of these people were related to each other, challenging the idea of an attack on a specific community. And we have to say, we challenge that.
Yes, we really, really do.
It's really, remarkable. Really do. I mean, it's quite accidental. It was not deliberate. And I found myself in Austria and at a replication of a reconstruction of the Schletz Rondel up there. That pit's deep. I can attest to that. I would have liked to have fallen into it, but it's quite coincidental. It's sort of present and real for me. However, to the point, the genetic analysis revealed that fewer than 10 of the people were related to each other. Well, it wasn't that small a community. How many people would you expect to be related to each other in a community? I don't know. Haven't done the study myself, but I just find that surprising as a basis for questioning whether or not this was a community that finds itself in the ditch, massacred. Especially as a lot of them are children.
It is an intriguing comment, and it makes you wonder how they've considered the variables, because I don't know about your settlement, but my settlement here, I don't think there's probably 3 people related. It's just. And let's be honest, you could have. Well, actually, no. I was going to say you could have husband and wife, but you couldn't, because they actually found no adult women in Schletz, did they?
Well, that says the massacre also raises questions about the absence of young women among the remains and the predominance of children among the victims. These puzzles fuel
because you would take the women away. I'd say you would. No, I wouldn't. But we do know that that back in the day that was a likely thing. That the women would go to other communities. So
it's a talking point, but
there's a lot to unravel in that.
We do question the conclusion of that study, I have to say, and the basis for saying what it says.
Yeah. Andrew has said in the comments that from the few family trees obtained via genetic analysis, females remained with the land whilst males moved around. Yeah, it's interesting though, because there are also plenty of instances where, in particularly, I mean, using long barrows as an example, that actually the women, it seemed, always went with the burials of their husbands, which were very often not with their families. So women were very often found with unrelated burials. So it's an interesting one.
It seems as present-day Amish communities of men moving about to other communities while the women stay put.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny how
so much to unravel. Yeah,
there's so much cultural evolution goes on in the name of keeping the mixture, genetic mixture fresh. Anyway, actually, before we proceed to the next one, I mean, obviously, guys, for you Patreon folks that do already support us, we're speaking now to YouTubers that may have just come across us, or been watching for some time and may be interested in what we're doing. I tell you what. Anybody that hasn't been following us recently, let's talk about Göbekli Tepe. Because if you've ever dreamt of being able to go to Göbekli Tepe, if you've had it, I'd love to go to that place, and you can do that, goodness, go to Turkey. You'll be well rewarded. If, on the other hand, you feel, don't think I'm going to make that one, that's a bit of a bridge too far. But nevertheless, wow, that place, I'd love to go there. You could do a lot worse than have a look at the link to the playlist that I just put up in the top right corner there, because we've got a whole 3 days of wandering through Göbekli Tepe, pretty much unhindered, with the lead archaeologist at the site, Dr. Lee Clare. Now that's part of was the first thing that we did with our Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project. Funds were raised for that on Buy Me a Coffee. What I'm going to do now is actually run the original trailer, I mean the promo film for our Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project. So the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project is not over. That's why I'm running the film. So, we're still asking for your help. So here we go. Let's run that. Is that the right one? No, that is good.
We would like you to help us to take you on an extraordinary journey. We would like you to help us to take you on an extraordinary journey.
We're asking you to help us answer the question of not only how did this amazing monument down here in the south of France come to be, this is the Domaine des Fades near Cyril, but what led to the construction of thousands and thousands of megalithic monuments throughout northwestern Europe, and ultimately, at the end of the Neolithic period, Stonehenge, about 1,000 miles that way, on the Salisbury Plain.
The answer isn't here nor on Salisbury Plain, and in order to even begin to tell the story of the Neolithic, we need to be somewhere else, and at another time, thousands of years even before this ancient monument was built. And for that, we need to head east.
Our passion is in helping to tell the story of how, from the earliest farming in Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent, humans came to leave their mark on the world in the form of the great tombs, henges and megaliths that we wonder at today.
We plan to make a series of films to illustrate that story, and we'd like your help. We need your support to raise the funds necessary to begin filming the series, starting right now with the first episode.
Supporting this project is really easy. We have a Buy Me a Coffee webpage where you can make a contribution for as little as $5 or as much as you want. Each and every single dollar raised will go towards the travel and subsistence costs necessary for each stage of filming.
You'll find loads more information about our plans and our funding goals on our Buy Me a Coffee website. For the moment, though, it seems that we've come as far as we can. In front of us is the Mediterranean Sea.
That way lies Italy, Sardinia, Greece, the Aegean, Turkey, Cyprus, northeast. What have we got northeast? We've got the Great Steppe, we've got the Balkans, up the Danube. Yeah. Good grief. That way. What have we got that way?
Well, if we turn right, go that way, turn right, then we go along the bottom part of Spain, of Andalusia, and up the Atlantic seaboard, up to Brittany, Which leaves only one place left to go, really, isn't it?
Going home for us, yes.
Yeah, the point is we're going to have to visit all these places if we're going to stand a chance, any chance at all, of explaining the presence on Salisbury Plain of a set of sarsen stones we call Stonehenge.
Yes, so please donate now and help us to start that journey.
We thank you very much indeed.
Guys, I hope you don't mind us running that again. As you probably know, we were saying we're just about to start. Well, that was back then. We have started, thanks to the generosity of people and the Buy Me donating to the Buy Me a Coffee campaign. But love Rupert's energy. Come on, first I've heard of it. No, I'm joking. That's much appreciated, Nelly. No, as you know, we're well underway. As I said, the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project playlist, which I've just indicated, will show you quite a few things that we've accomplished. However, much more needs to be done, and the next stage of I was going to say our adventure, but it's your adventure. That's the thing. As we've said so often, it's being able to tell the story of the Neolithic and tell the story of how farming got across Europe and how the first megaliths got to be where they are. Next stage is to get to the Aegean and explain, by being there, how that actually happened, how we wouldn't be where we are now if the first farmers hadn't taken to the seas back then. So we're going there to really have a close look at how that happened. Obviously, we need your help. The next tranche. We're sort of fairly advanced in raising the funds for that. But if you do follow the link down below, you'll find out more about where we are and how you can help. Just to be clear, the next stage, we're going back to Turkey, to the west coast of Turkey, to a couple of sites near Izmir that help us tell the remainder of the story of the Neolithic in Turkey, but also explain why we think, and many archaeologists think, that the breach was made into the Aegean and landfall was made in Crete. And it's all because, and we'll be going to Crete, and believe it or not, the answers to those questions are hidden under Knossos. The earliest Neolithic settlement on Crete is under the Palace of Knossos, believe it or not. But it all revolves around a little island called Milos, which we'll be going to, which is where all the obsidian
something that I'm quite looking forward to, if we can do it, is on Crete, is possibly the oldest living olive tree. 4,000 and something years old, they reckon. And how can you not go and visit a living thing that's that old?
Well, that's the thing about being in these places. We can pick up on these places of fascination along the way as well, even though they may not belong in the narrative of the prehistoric period that we're covering. For instance, we'll be very near Ephesus in the first two sites in Turkey, so we'd have to take you there. It would be rude not to, and to go to Milos and Frankthi Cave in southern Greece, which tells one of the most important archaeological sites in the world, in our humble opinion. And we've got to go there. We've got to take you there as well, show you these places. So, if you're thinking about supporting us, thank you so much. Do have a look in the link below. I think I've said enough about that, unless you want to say anything else, Rupert.
I'm just going to pick up that Stephanie, handle here as Moxie Sorbet Designs. Stephanie said, I'll donate dollars to see more dancing in videos. Stephanie, it would have to be a lot of dollars.
I'll dance. It's not a problem. I'll make him dance.
Yes. Dance, monkey boy.
That's right.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Yeah, but in answer to Stephen's comment, yeah, my knees are still working. How long for remains to be seen. Yeah.
Anyway, we've spent enough time on this show
Yes.
asking for money. All right. Brilliant. And thanks for bearing with us, guys. We know they're watching this right now who are already supporters of us. So we're so grateful. It wouldn't be happening without you. Shall I move on before I get all emotional?
Indeed.
Yeah. Solar superstorm in 664 BCE, recorded in tree rings. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what you say? I don't know. Shall I? How long is this article? It's quite a long article, actually. So I think it's one that probably needs praising. So I'll read that. Scientists have narrowed down the date of a solar superstorm that occurred more than 2,600 years ago to 664 BCE, based on a spike in carbon-14 in ancient tree rings. The carbon-14 spike was found in ancient wood, including wood from an Iron Age child's burial chamber in Russia. I thought it was Mongolia, but anyway, it's Russia. This event was one of the 6 solar superstorms that have occurred in the past 14,500 years, say the scientists. Do you want to speak to the significance of this and what they've done, Rupert? Or shall I just continue reading on?
I'm surprised that they haven't included the Carrington event from, when was it, 18...
Does
something.
that not count?
They haven't included it, but I'm sure that would have. So basically, these are Miyake events. They're called. They're actually named after. It was a Japanese physicist who.
Yeah, that's the thing. This article doesn't make it clear. It just talks about this one, as far as I can make out.
Well, the significant thing about this one, and the reason that they were excited about it, is that it's recorded in Assyrian tablets.
Oh, I see.
So what they were excited about was that they had this thing that was recorded in the Assyrian tablets, and they've actually been able to pinpoint exactly when the event happened. So, when archaeology can nail something that's recorded in text, I mean, that is exciting, isn't it? I can really understand why they got in the tears about this.
Absolutely.
Miyake events. So it was this guy Miyake who, this guy Miyake, Fusa Miyake, I think his name is, and he was the one who recognized that you could actually pinpoint these things with dendrochronology because of the spike in C14. That happens as a result of the solar activity. So they've pinpointed through the dendrochronology. They've pinpointed the ones that they've pinpointed are 7,176 BC, 5,410 BC, 5,259 BC.
Yeah. You've got
this
a complete
one
list, have you?
This one's 66. Actually, this one they said was 664, but in this list it says 660, and then more recently 774 CE. See, I'm old school. Yeah. I still say AD, and 993.
My source says that there are a dozen Miyake events known.
Yeah. This is in the last 14,500 years, this list.
Yeah. I mean, I think the good way to think about these is in an aid to precise chronological dating is to regard them as anchor points in prehistory. Once you've got this, because I mean, we probably wouldn't have been attracted to this in the first place had it not been for the fact that the 5259 BCE event pinpointed, here we go again, the Dispilio settlement in northern Greece, the lakeside settlement, made famous by the tablet, by the eponymous tablet.
We'll come back to Dispilio,
yeah. So that's the significance of it, both for the pinpointing of something or confirming something that's in early texts, but also more generally that these can be really helpful anchor points.
The thing for me with a lot of this is that when you can have an event, I mean, look what's been happening recently. We've had this has been a particularly active solar cycle. If the timing goes the way it's supposed to, then we actually reach the peak of this current solar cycle in 2025. And you look at what's been happening over the last year, that we've had a lot of massive solar flares where aurorae have been seen coming, way south of where they would normally be. So if you had a solar event, so something of the scale of a Margate event, that if you've got aurorae that are really being seen that far south to be recorded in Assyrian tablets, that must have been one massive solar storm. And what would people then, with no understanding, no scientific understanding of the cosmos, that suddenly the skies are filled with heaven knows what colours down there, that something magical is happening? What must they have thought? I wish I could translate the tablets and read them myself. It would be really interesting to see what they thought. Did they think the gods were particularly happy, or the other way around? Don't know. But yeah, it must have been such an extraordinary event for the people all over the world that could see it back then.
Just to pinpoint where we're talking about. Oh dear. Finger trouble.
Surely not.
Yeah. There we are. It's in the Altai mountains. Must be the other side of it. It's in Russia, but that's the sort of location we're talking about. Actually, while we're talking about the site itself from which the wood was sampled, that's the burial chamber from the child in one of the kurgans, which are, to all intents and purposes, the large barrow mounds from the Pazyryk culture. Golly. Anyway, sorry, I was just showing off there and failing. Yeah, that's it as far as the Margate events are concerned. Yes. Let's move on to closer to, well, your home anyway.
Yeah.
Here we go. Have you got the text? Do you want to read this, or shall I?
Hold on a second. I don't
want to put you on the spot.
It's only marginally on the spot. I don't mind being put on the spot.
Yeah.
This is archaeologists in Prehistory it's in the Hérault, which is a region that is, I think I said at the beginning of the program, didn't I? It's a 2-hour drive from where I am now. Have uncovered a rare late Neolithic burial that challenges conventional interpretations of funerary practices. The discovery, made in 2017 during routine evaluations, I don't know what they mean by evaluations, but anyway, revealed the skeleton of a woman in a former storage pit measuring 2.9 meters in diameter, Radiocarbon dating places the burial in the Chalcolithic period, circa 27 to 26 BCE, aligning it with the Verasian culture prevalent in the Languedoc-Roussillon and Catalonia regions. I'm in the Languedoc-Roussillon.
You are.
Now, I'm not seeing what you're showing at the moment, Michael.
I'm showing the first big photograph.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So the remains were found supine, with the woman's limbs flexed slightly to the left and her arms positioned across her chest. However, what sets this burial apart is the meticulous placement of the woman's severed head on her chest, supported by her right hand. Researchers determined the skeleton's sex through pelvic morphology, later confirmed via paleogenetic testing. The precise arrangement of the skull and the intact connections between the skull mandible and right hand strongly suggest deliberate action. According to the researchers, this positioning could not result from natural decomposition or accidental post-mortem bone displacement. The burial's completeness and the absence of significant disarticulation further support the hypothesis of intentional decapitation at or shortly after the time of death. Now, it goes on at length, and I don't think we need to pursue it.
Doesn't it?
It does really. But I mean, what? There are some glorious photographs. It has to be said. Whilst I suppose some people might find them a little macabre, but we were saying earlier with the burial of the aunt with her two nephews. Right, there's a story, and here is a woman buried holding her head. Here's a story. What the hell is that about? Whether she was decapitated, whether the decapitation was the cause of her death, or whether her head was removed after death, don't know. But the fact that they placed it supported by her hand is...
it's just the fascinating thing of what are they attempting to record here? Because a statement of some kind is definitely being made. How can... Do we have any possibility for reading this? No. We can make up all sorts of stories about it. Stories that we wouldn't have thought of if we hadn't seen with our own eyes, what's going on here. You know what I mean? It's so novel. The detail of it. And so the challenge always is not for somebody to come up with what is true about these, but to write a consistent and believable novel that would speak to any of these kinds of events and the people, and the emotions and the drivers associated with them.
We should have a word with Dan Davis, see if he's written anything about it.
Completely.
Dan Davis, for those of you that don't know, Dan Davis has a great channel on YouTube where he actually writes novels that are based on actual archaeological finds, and he's got some lovely little films on his channel as well. And this I would say was right up his street. Kate says looks like a facepalm. It doesn't it? And Mike and I were joking about
that
this.
Angle.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? Because I think that everything in life should be laughed at, and it's amazing how often people take offence when Michael and I have chuckled about some odd burial practices, and some people think that we're being utterly disrespectful. And I say, get a grip. If you can't laugh in the face of death, then Anyway, that's exactly what I said. Or alternatively, this woman who was always complaining, and it was always this business. So they actually thought, well, they'd put her like that in perpetuity because that was how she liked to spend all her life.
Yeah. Had a bad headache. Oh, Helen. Yeah. Just to backtrack a little bit to the question, I was glad Nelly asked the question about the effect of C14 surges in the atmosphere may have upon the reliability of radiocarbon dating for organic material.
I can't go tech here.
No.
But
Well, Kate has reassured. They say that I assume, it was my assumption that they would have done, but Kate says they definitely do now. Just
I was going to say I can't go tech and say how, but they do actually calibrate for that, which is so damn clever, and that's why I think it's still, but it was about every 18 months that they will release the latest calibrated C14 sequencing, so that you can. They're constantly refining C14 dating. Obviously, it doesn't fluctuate very much at all, but it does get refined with every new calibration, which is all very exciting.
Class says laughing is a good way to attempt coping with incomprehension. That's why we laugh so much, Class. Yeah. Absolutely. We haven't a clue.
Yeah, I live in a permanent state of incomprehension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laugh. Anyway, so to finish up with this evening, we're going to food. I was just saying earlier that it's nothing to the prehistory guys if it isn't bread or cheese from from prehistory. In this case, would you believe focaccia?
Yeah.
Focaccia, a Neolithic culinary tradition dating back 9,000 to 9,000 years ago. Which is perfectly reasonable. It's based around an analysis of these husking trays. Now, you can see an example of a husking tray containing, what looks like a quite well-risen piece of bread, loaf of bread inside it. It's not a flat bread exactly, is it? Maybe, I don't know. But that's what this is all around the analysis of husking trays. So, a study led by researchers from the UAB and the University La Sapienza in Rome indicates that during the late Neolithic, between 7,000 and 5,000 BCE, the fully agricultural communities in the Fertile Crescent region of the Near East developed a complex culinary tradition that included the baking of large loaves of bread and focaccias with different flavours on special trays known to archaeologists as husking trays, which is very good news indeed. I'm not even sure, that there's anything much that said it pretty much.
I think the interesting thing about the husking trays is that these trays, they call them trays, but they were covered on the inside with raised ridges, clay,
on the sides, or on the bottoms.
Yes, and on the sides, bottoms and sides, so that the bread didn't stick to the tray. Okay. It made it easier to get the bread out when it was cooked. It just made me chuckle when I read that, because I thought, and I do appreciate I'm going off on one here, so I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
Off you go. Off you go.
Yes, it made me
Drift
think
away.
The Dispilio tablet again. That you look at the Dispilio tablet, and you've got the markings carrying around the side. And clearly the Dispilio tablet is broken. That's not the whole piece. And it made me wonder, that would make a damn good mould for a husking tray, wouldn't it? If you just... because when the Dispilio tablet came out of the water, the grooves on it were very deep, rather than they look quite flat now. And I just thought, if you pushed clay all around that, then there you go. Your husking tray. You've got that's all well textured now on the inside, and you had the edge of it was marked as well. There you go. It's a mould for a husking tray. You heard it here first.
Crickets. That goes in the bucket with the Uffington White Horse is a cat.
Yeah. I'll stand by that.
Actually, if you know the Uffington White Horse, guys, once you look at it with Rupert's idea in your head, it's never unseen. The Uffington White Horse is now a cat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I do believe
I'll
that.
wipe
So
that
when have
image
you
from
seen
your
a
minds.
horse with whiskers?
Back to bread. These investigations suggested that large loaves made with water and flour might have been baked on these trays, placed in domed ovens for about 2 hours at an initial temperature of 400. Oh, what they can do with science these days. It's a wonder, Rupert. It really is. 420 degrees centigrade. The grooves on the internal surface would have facilitated the removal of the bread once baked. Moreover, the large size of the loaves, approximately 3 kilograms, suggested they were likely intended for communal consumption. I think that's actually the main thing of the whole thing. The size of these husking trays lends to the creation of large loaves, which in turn would sustain, be shareable, much more widely shareable. I think that was really the
3 kilogram loaf is quite a big loaf, isn't it?
And also the speculation about the flavourings involved as well, and they go on to say there's plant-based seasonings involved. They can discern some of that from the residues of the trays. The temperatures are compatible with the baking of bread.
Do you know what? You talking about temperatures there, reading that off. It's something that I'm sorry. Something I have a frog in my throat that I've talked about with Julie, my wife. Something that really amazes me is that these days we set the oven to whatever temperature we want, and we can time things however we want. And you think you don't even have to go back to prehistory. You think of a cook in a stately home 500 years ago, that person had to be able to judge the temperature of a fire, and make all those calculations just on experience and instinct. And I'm surprised. Well, put it another way, I'm not surprised when you think of the times that we've talked about pots that have been found with burnt, revolting cheese was found in one in Denmark, wasn't it? That someone had clearly ruined this meal so badly that they'd just thrown the entire pot out. With the stinking ingredients still inside it. I am quietly in awe of old school cooking like this.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of experience to be able to make good bread in those sorts of conditions. It's clever.
Andrew Wright, bread and beer, diet of champions.
You speak wise words, Andrew. You speak wise words.
And on those wise words and reflective thoughts, I think it's time to bring this show to a close. That's all we've got for the time being, folks. As ever, thank you for being with us, and thank you for helping make the evening fun. I hope there was loads of interesting stuff in there for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alison. I will look that up. Yes, there you go. I don't know no more.
Not much, anyway. So till the next time. Not sure when that'll be, but it'll probably be sooner than we think. I think we'll be doing another live before Christmas, because I think we've got plenty of news items to
and there's some nice stuff has been coming out, actually, that we were agonising, actually, earlier on, having planned all this, we were agonising about whether we should shuffle things around because of some of the new things that have just come in the news, but we decided, no, we'll just do another one before Christmas.
So look out for coming up a piece about pile dwellings.
Indeed.
The whole issue of lakeside dwellings in the early Neolithic, early, middle and late, indeed, Neolithic. Heads exploded a bit around that.
Yeah.
And also Brittany, there's a story to tell about extraordinary burials off the coast of Brittany that tells a story about the end of the Mesolithic there before the megalithic stuff starts to get going there. So watch out for that. That'll include film from our visit to Brittany in September, and will be part of the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project series. So watch out for that. Okay, that's it. I'm done. As I said, thanks so much, guys. Stay well till we see you the next time. Bye-bye from
Indeed.
me.
Yes, and from me. Take good care, folks. Keep warm. See you soon.